So this is a picture of me and my boyfriend the year we did long distance. It was 10 years ago and I was a senior in college and he had just graduated. But we're not talking about my long distance relationship today. We're talking about one of yours. This is an advice column after all. The writer's name is Cold and Confused and she's in a foreign country right now without her boyfriend and is facing a problem that she was not expecting. Allow me to read her letter. Hello Hayes. I'm studying abroad and I'm doing long distance with my boyfriend for the first time ever. We've been together for 2 years. Recently I felt myself growing distant. I thought absence makes the heart grow fonder, but I feel myself becoming cold. I feel guilty that I don't miss him more, and when he visited recently, I felt like I was babysitting. That's never a good sign. He noticed my distance and asked me what's wrong, and all I could say is, I'm sorry, I don't know. The issue started slightly before study abroad, when I experienced some health issues, but it became more pronounced once I left. To make matters worse, I have such little desire to have sex, and sometimes I feel nauseous after. I'm not sure if it's anxiety or related to my health, and I'm not sure if I'll ever know. It feels so unfair to him, and I'm genuinely confused as to why I feel this way. He's been so supportive throughout my health issues, family crises, and day-to-day drama. He's kind, intelligent, gets along great with my friends, and we want the same things in life. I know he sees a future for us, and at times I do too. Other times, though, the idea of being with the same person for the rest of my life makes me feel like the walls are closing in. It's frustrating because I don't feel like I have a reason to feel like this or even understand where the feeling's coming from. Is this normal, Hayes? How do I get past it? What would you do? Yours, Cold and Confused. Woo! Cold and confused. Absence does not always make the heart grow fonder, but it does usually make it see clearly. And we don't always like what we see. I don't know what's happening for you here. Long distance relationships are hard. I'm sure you knew that going in. What I do know is that your heart is trying to speak to you, and it's your job to listen to it. So before we talk about that voice, listening to the voice inside you and trying to figure out what it means, I want to tell you 5 things I noticed in your letter that might help you see the situation differently. The first thing is your health challenges. I don't know what they were or are, but you mentioned them enough for me to know they impacted you greatly. Have you let yourself really feel that? Have you acknowledged that you're a different person now than you were before? It would make sense to me if that experience introduced new anxieties or just made you see the world through a different lens. And that new lens might be a positive one. Just don't underestimate how a health challenge can flip everything on its head. And the second thing is on the health piece, sex should not make you nauseous. It's not uncommon, but it's not the norm either. It broke my heart a little when you said that you might never know why you're feeling nauseous after sex, and I want you to have hope that you will. You must talk to your doctor about this if you haven't already. I can't promise that the first doctor will listen or take you seriously. I've had bad experiences with doctors before. I don't want to be naive to that. It could be a medical thing with a solution. It could be an anxiety related thing, which we can work on. I think it's also fair ground to talk with your boyfriend about so that you guys can adjust. Maybe he just needs to pull back a little. And he sounds like the kind of guy who would want to know if you're in pain. And if you don't want to talk with him or you have talked with him but it isn't fixing anything, it could be a sign that you don't want to have sex with him specifically. And on that note, which I know is scary to hear, is the third thing. Just because someone is good doesn't mean that they're good for you. And this guy sounds wonderful. I see why you love him. And I trust that you do love him, but I'm not sure that you're still in love with him. You don't need a reason to feel like your time with someone is up. You're not firing him from a job. You don't need just cause. It's great that he's been such a good boyfriend and that he set the standard of the type of person you want to be with, but that doesn't make him your forever. Speaking of, why are you thinking about forever, by the way? I can see how that would feel like a lot of pressure as a junior in college. I think there's this misconception that no matter how old you are, if you're not sure for certain that you want to marry someone, that they're not the right person for you. And I think that that's bullshit. It's totally normal to want to be with someone now and not feel ready to think about the future. Do you want to be with your boyfriend today? And do you want to be with your boyfriend tomorrow? From the details in your letter, I think you might already have your answer to that. And the fifth and final thing I'll say is that not all of your feelings need to be fair. You're so consumed with fairness in this letter. It's not fair to him that I feel the way I do. But we don't evaluate ourselves as human beings based on whether our feelings are fair. Feelings themselves don't have morals. We evaluate ourselves based on what we do with our feelings. What would become unfair is if you have these doubts, if you continue to feel like babysitting when he's around, if you don't want him to touch you, if his touch makes you nauseous, and if you don't be brave and end things then, that would be unfair. He deserves someone who's excited about him, just like you were at one point. The right thing to do for someone you love, as I can tell you do your boyfriend, is to let them go when you are no longer in love with them. Yours, Hayes.